What's up, YouTube? So, I just got back, like I said in my previous live stream, I just got back from a huge tournament. So, this is the deck I took with me. It placed third. It actually did extremely well for just kind of a rough kind of build. This is actually known as my odd eyes, aka my Yuya's Evolution deck. It's got various things that would like either show up in the show, or I feel like Yuya would have used if he had the option as like his character deck if he was running Venom Dragon as his boss. With that being said, let's get to deck profile. Starting off is the main boss of the deck, Odd Eyes. Clearly, we're going to be running him at 3. There is no excuse not to run 3 of this card. Zoom in a little bit. There's a card in an Odd Eyes deck. So, yeah, 3 Odd Eyes. For the remainder of his dragons, we have 2 of the Phantom, Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon. This card's pretty good. It doesn't come too clutch too often, but it does have some potential. And for the remainder of his dragons, we have the 2 Persona. I feel like Persona is a good card. Mirage is pretty good. I want to run a second Persona instead of the Mirage, though, or I may end up adding Mirage or adding a second Persona and taking something else out. I've got a lot of ideas. This is a fusion focused build, but it can XDs and Synchro along with Link. For the Magicians, we start off with 3 Time Gazer. One of the things you want to keep in mind is Time Gazer is actually a card you're wanting in the scale. Because this deck doesn't run Arc. You're wanting Time Gazer for protecting your Odd Eyes from spells and traps during battle. That's the primary focus, because this is a beatdown style deck. 2 of the Noble Mages. 2 Noble Dragon Magicians. These guys, they're your tuners. They'll get you where you need. They're searchable through a method that's in this deck, but because fusion is the primary focus, they do not take priority to bring out. They're just, if you want to get spicy, you can. For the remainder of the Magicians, I have a Purple Poison Magician. Actually kind of comes in clutch when I need a Dragon Monster for, basically, if I'm wanting to bring out Clearwing, I'll search out Purple Poison and the Noble Magician. So, Dragon Pulse, you can run this card or you can take it out. I've noticed that it's not necessary. You could run something like Apex Avian in the place of these 3 spots, and I don't think it would make a difference. And Astrograph Sorcerer. Astrograph is actually in here as a, you want to turbo this card out. It's a 7-star beater, and it can actually get you to your Exeast plays a little bit sooner than having to wait. For the Performance Pow cards in the deck, I run 2 of the Unicorn and 1 of the Odd Eyes Light Phoenix. I also run Performance Pow Yugo Golem. He's an extra fusion card, basically. He's actually really useful for multiple different plays. Whether I want Dark Rebellion or whether I want to bring out Starving Venom, he comes in really, really clutch in those situations. And I think by now we all know that you run a Supreme King engine in Odd Eyes nowadays. So I've got 2 of the Dark Worm and 1 Gate Infinity. These are all good cards. The deck is extremely cheap to build too, or relatively cheap. But yeah, that does it for the monsters. So now it's on to the spells. First off, we'll start off with the primary spell of the deck, Odd Eyes Fusion. This card is actually really, really useful. It is actually one of the strongest cards or spell cards in the deck because it does have the ability to bring out Supreme King Zark by itself. So it is extremely powerful. It is such a powerful spell that if you don't run 3 of it in your deck, you're actually missing out because there are some pretty ridiculous plays that you just have not explored yet. I also run 3 poly. Even at 3, it doesn't pop up as much as I would like it to. 9 times out of 10, polymerization gets me to my Starving Venom Fusion, or every once in a while, if I have performed Palyuga Golem, it ends up bringing out the Venom Dragon. But keep in mind, Odd Eyes Fusion is still the better variant. Duelist Alliance. Good searcher. It can basically search anything in the deck, excluding like a few spell, like the poly, like Odd Eyes Fusion's not really searchable through that, and neither is polymerization. But polymerization is searchable, and I'll get to that here in a sec. But first, the last 3 of in the deck is actually 3 Swords of Revealing Light. Most people are not going to be targeting this, especially if they know what Odd Eyes can do. 3 turns used right can actually end a duel, and people don't realize that this card is actually really, really, it's still good in this day and age. Yeah, you can MST it, but if it doesn't immediately get MST'd because they're waiting on something else, then they have to just kind of wait. And that's rough because then they have like 3 turns where they just can't attack. 2 Spiral Flame Strikes. Your Odd Eye Searcher, and this is actually very, very useful for those of you that don't have super quick setups. For the field spell, I only run 2 of the Sky Iris, and this is for a reason. So Sky Iris is actually, for me, not as important for the deck because it's mainly my extender to get into bigger plays. I 9 times out of 10 blow up Sky Iris for something else. However, after I get this out on the field, game's definitely in my control. Dragon Shrine. I run 1 of it. I only need 1 because you're only going to see it once a duel, and I don't search it out. It's actually terraforming. Yep. Searchable through terraforming, a very, very useful card, and I would run 2, but 2 seems like it's too much for the deck because, yes, there is the Sky Iris and the Dragon Shrine, but I mainly want to search out the Dragon Shrine because Sky Iris is really only an extender. Pendulum Call. This card is so nasty. It comes in so clutch to get me into my Magician plays to bring out some of the strongest cards in my deck. I cannot tell you how many times I have ended up pulling out Clearwing on turn 1 or Dark Rebellion on turn 1. It's just such a clutch card. And if I get this in my first hand, that's awesome. But it is searchable through Duelist Alliance, so I don't see the need to run more than one. You could probably tell I'm not running Soul Pendulum. And that's for a couple different reasons. Soul Pendulum is not in this deck because it's not necessary for this deck to be able to win. Now, for the extra deck, and I'm going to show you the primary extra deck, and then there's a kind of like definitely good throw-ins for it. So first off is the main boss of the deck, Odd Eyes Venom Fusion, or Odd Eyes Venom Dragon, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, and Vortex Dragon. These three monsters are by far the fusions you want to go into most. Zark as well, if you can get the Odd Eyes fusion off. It comes in real clutch. I do have a Performant Pal Gatlin Ghoul in here as of right now because I had to return my Supreme King Zark card to my friend. For synchro plays, we've got Clearing Synchro, Odd Eyes Meteor Burst, and Supreme King Clearwing. Should be kind of simple enough. It's mainly negation, removal, and stuff like that. It can be pretty useful. Rebellion, I'm just wanting to swing over something, because again, this is a beater deck, so Rebellion does come off a lot. Supreme King Dark Rebellion, another card that ends up coming off a lot in this deck because it is very, very useful. It does have the nix of having to have two dark pendulum monsters, but there's plenty of targets for that. And the last Xyz monster, or at least for the Odd Eyes main portion, is Absolute Dragon. You're going to want to run at least one Absolute Dragon to get into Vortex if you can't fusion off right away, because Vortex is extremely powerful. The other portion of the deck is actually kind of just, these are all optional cards that if you do run them, they're going to help the deck. Black Rose and Stardust as your synchro plays. These two cards alone finish out your synchros, and you need at least one 8-star synchro. And board wiping is not as prevalent now, but it's still really, really helpful to have something that can wipe the board. For your Xyz play, you're going with the number 11 Big Eye. Now, don't get me wrong, you can get away with running Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, but that's more or less just burn damage, so I refuse to actually run Flare Metal Dragon in an Odd Eyes deck. Because burn damage is not really that helpful, especially in a deck that can basically just beat over everything anyways. And because no one plays anything in face-down defense anymore, what's the point in running something that's going to burn past their monsters? It just makes no sense. I guess for a 28 beater, it'd be interesting. Link plays, I have Land for Linkus. This is a card that I have been adamant about putting in my deck. It is a Cyverse Link 2 1200 attack. It's just kind of a joke card. It's actually a Link Climber for Decode Talker. it makes it that way I can not only bring 2 Pendulum monsters back. 9 times out of 10, Land for Linkus will only come off if I have swords up, because I don't want to risk having my things blown up, obviously. He's actually a pretty good card, surprisingly, for not having an effect. But all he is a Link Climber. So basically, that's the deck profile. Again, all of these cards are actually optional. Most people say to run Heavy Metal Foe Electromite in Pendulum decks. Yes, if you can afford Electromite, definitely go for that card. It is extremely useful in Pendulum decks. I personally don't run it because I'm not a fan of Electromite. It is a good card. I just don't run anything I don't like. And I don't run cards that really just don't add anything to my plays. I mean, yes, it is an extender, but with all of the extending and searching, I never actually need to bring out more than one card at a time. But if I'm wanting to go into those heavier plays, like if I get Venom Dragon out and I want to Pendulum Summon it out instead of having it just on the extra monster spot, I'll bring out Land for Linkus and then Pendulum Summon after. So that's kind of that idea behind that. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, do all that sorts of jazz. Kind of last kind of thing for a while until I can get Zark and stuff like that to update my deck. But all days is fun. So thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.